Hi guys, welcome back to Newgate Nurseries. It's January 2023 and now's a great time to be thinking about the year ahead. So we're going to do a compost tour today. It's a big year of transition for compost because at the end of this year you won't be able to sell peat-based products. So all compost will be going peat-free. There's a big debate about peat-free and whether it's better for the environment than peat. You've got to think about what goes into peat-free compost, and we'll discuss that shortly. Okay, but you can still buy peat-based compost if you want it, and that's available to the end of this year. This is the product we're selling. It's a really good compost. It's just like the old-fashioned stuff. Grow More multi-purpose compost, a 50-litre bag. It's got a decent length feed in there, and it's a really nice fluffy mix. So that one is 10 for £50 on a special deal. Okay, so that's the only one that's 100% peat. There is another one which is 50% peat, and that's Jack's Magic from Westland. Okay, so that's still the old-fashioned blend, but that will be going peat-free at the end of this year. That's 10 for £58. Now then, peat-free compost, what's in it? Well, Westland are the leaders of peat-free compost. They've gone to town this year. They've gone early with it. And they've produced something called Bio 3. Now Bio 3 is a group of fibres that basically replaces peat. Okay, so in there you've got West Plus. Now West Plus is made from the Sitka spruce, which is a fast growing conifer in Ireland. They harvest it sustainably over there, and that's then chopped to form a fibre that looks like peat. Then you've got biofibre. Now biofibre is a waste product from the whisky industry. So again, that's all very local around Ireland, so there's no travelling for that. And then finally you've got coir. Now coir is the little bit of, what shall I say, it's a little bit controversial. It's the husk of a coconut, nothing wrong with that. Trouble is, it's over in India and Sri Lanka where working conditions are poor. The staff aren't paid much money. Then it's got to be shipped all over the world to get here. Then it's full of salt, so it needs to be washed with thousands of gallons of seawater. And then finally, it has to be dyed with carbon to make it look anything like compost. So in a sense, that isn't very environmentally friendly. But speaking to the lads at Westland, they are working their socks off to try and find an alternative to the coir, because they really don't want coir to be in the compost going forward. So that's basically the picture of peat-free compost at the minute. Other people make it in other ways, but on the whole, it's made from coir. Now then, what have we got that's peat-free? Well, first and foremost, probably one of the best composts on the market is the Westland Multi-Purpose and John Innes. So that's got the loam of the John Innes still, okay, and that's brilliant for potting shrubs. It's just a great multi-purpose compost. If you're going to put shrubs in pots, then that's probably the one to use. Alright, another peat-free is the container and basket. Container and basket compost here. This is 100% peat-free now. It's got water retaining gel, it's got slow release fertiliser, so that's great for a bit later in the season when we're doing our summer baskets. If you do want a peat-free compost at a sort of budget rate, then you've got this one, which is 10 for £35, which is an absolute bargain. It's called Richmore. Now this is it's a peat-free compost made in a different way. This is made from basically recycled green waste. So it's like an old-fashioned compost, but then its pH is altered and it's got a feed in there as well. So that is a good compost, and that's 10 for £35. Okay, John Innes. John Innes number 1, number 2, number 3, and ericaceous John Innes. That's all now completely peat-free as well. So John Innes is the loam-based compost that you use for potting plants permanently. That's John Innes number 3 is the one you use for potting plants permanently. Number 1's for seedlings, number 2's for repotting, and the ericaceous are for things like azaleas, rhododendrons. So this is your number 1. This is for your seedlings and maybe potting cuttings on. John Innes number 3, this is for putting shrubs in pots, and you can leave them in there like bay trees and buxus and things like that, leave them in there for the rest of their lives. And then John Innes ericaceous are things like rhododendrons, camellias, berberis, things like that. We do have specialist composts as well. So one plant that needs a little bit more feed than others is a rose. So that's why we got the rose compost here. it's got zinc in it, it's got sulphur in it. It basically, again, peat free, but it's brilliant for roses because, and other hungry plants, because it's just got those extra nutrients that help sort of fend off black spot, keep the plant healthy, and then it won't get diseased. Okay, so this is the time of year we're going to be starting thinking about sowing seeds and such like. So over here we've got Growshaw seed and cutting compost. Again, this is peat free now, but it's a really fine mix. Okay, so probably the finest mix you can get. Brilliant for seed sowing. It's got vermiculite in there, so that's what you need right now if you're starting some plants off. Okay, now one of the last one I'll show you is a peat free compost, is probably the one we've been selling for the longest, and this is Silver Grow multi-purpose Melcourt. Okay, so this is RHS endorsed. It's probably one of the best peat free products you can buy. Brilliant for everything really, and when you look at it you just think it would be peat, but it isn't. No peat in it at all. We also do an ericaceous version of this. Okay, so that's your composts. Now what about improving your soil? Because this is the time of year now, autumn and spring is a time to work some organic matter back into the soil and liven it up. So we have 3 of those. Okay, they are spaced out, so we're going to have to walk for these. But probably the best priced one is one called Organic Garden Compost, which fools a lot of people because they think it's a multi-purpose compost, but it's not. So Organic Garden Compost is, like I said before, recycled green waste. It's basically recycled green waste. There are nutrients in there, but you wouldn't use it as a multi-purpose compost. You'd use this basically to improve your soil. We do a deal on that one. We do 10 for £25, or you can mix 12 of these and 10 topsoil, which is a perfect mix for growing veg and such like for your raised beds, and we do that for 80 quid. Okay, so that's the first conditioner. Now if you want something with a bit more manure in it, then you want the Soil Improver. It changed its name now to Active BioLife, but it's about 50% green waste, 50% manure, that one. And that one's brilliant again for breaking clay down, improving your soil. All right, another one we do, and that's 10 bags for 50 quid. Farmyard manure. So it's 100% manure. It's well rotted. It's probably about 4 or 5 years old. It's been turned and turned, so it's like compost, and that's brilliant again for just digging into your borders, improving, planting hedges. All right, and again that's on a deal. I think that's 10 for £45. Okay. Now another soil improver, the Rolls Royce of soil improvers, is this one here, made by a chap called Keith Singleton up in Cumbria. Again, this is peat free, totally organic, so you can use it for veg and such like. It's brilliant. I once tried growing geraniums in this and they did brilliantly. So you can grow directly in it, but the idea is you use it, you work it into your soil, it breaks the clay down, it improves the subsoil, and it feeds your plants. It also looks really nice as a mulch on the top. So that's your soil improvers, 3 options. Now brings us to on top of the soil. So to keep the moisture in, to keep the weeds out, we usually mulch. So what is mulch? Well, mulch tends to be bark, basically. You can use other aggregates like stone, but on the whole we use bark. Now there's different types of bark, believe it or not. So the first one we'll look at here is a decorative mini chip from Westland. This is a very finely shredded bark. It's good for using around small plants like alpines or bedding plants, or on small borders. Okay, so that's I think that's 2 for 14, that one. Then we go to the premium product, which is a pine nugget. I like a golden nugget, really nice. That's for more of like a decorative border, slightly bigger chip, and that's £9.99. We do a deal on that one, 10 for £85. Then we go to landscape bark. So landscape bark is a mixed wood bark, different sizes. It's great for doing large areas. It's 10 for £75, but it's a 100 litre bag rather than a 50 litre bag. So that's a really good deal. And then finally, if you don't want to use bark, then this is weed stop, which is basically 100% natural. It's an alternative to bark. It's actually made from the coir fibres we were discussing before, and they knit together to stop any weeds coming out and to keep the moisture in. So that's a really good product too. Talking about if you've got raised beds to fill, we discussed that we do a deal for £80 on the soil conditioner and topsoil. We also do a deal on the peat based compost and the topsoil, and that's £87. And in those deals you get 900 litres, which is the equivalent of a ton bag. Okay, right, well I hope that's been informative. There'll be plenty more videos coming out, so subscribe and watch this space. Cheers guys.